Welcome. I'm Danielle Sally.
And I'm Eva Fusa.
And you're listening to Ghost Boss, stories about the freelance afterlife. Hey, Ghosties.
Hey.
How are you, Eva?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good.
good.
Shall we jump right into things today?
Yeah, so normally we ramble
a lot.
But today we have a special guest, and so we're just going to skip the rambling. I'm sure Shawn cares about what kind of coffee I had this morning. Maybe not. That's usually what my rambles are.
That might be relevant considering where he's from.
Maybe. So, we'll just jump right in. And I'd like to welcome our guest, Shawn.
Hello,
Shawn.
Introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
My name is Shawn, a.k.a. Mallow.
Yeah.
I am a capital C creative.
Ooh.
You guys like capital
Starting
D
out right.
Yeah.
And I currently am at Seattle, Washington, even though I was born and raised here in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. So this is a little bit of coming home to do the podcast today with you all. So it's a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us.
I don't think I've been in this area of Columbia, I think in... dating myself at least 15, 20 years.
Sure.
Or so.
I was going to ask, when did you move to Seattle? Or I guess left Columbia.
Yeah.
I don't know if you went straight there or not.
Well, I left when I got done working at the University of South Carolina.
Okay. And
my now partner was down in Charleston working at the newspaper that I worked at forever and a day.
Yeah.
And so I got done working up here, and they were like, okay, we'll just come down to Charleston. And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll just get a bigger apartment. And stuff like that.
Fun,
like,
right?
Sure.
I was like, if nothing else, my parents' house is right there. Not that I want to move back in with my parents,
but it's an option. We can.
It's an option.
We can make it work if we have to.
And then they were like, absolutely hell no, we're moving back in with your parents. I was like, peace, good, I'm glad.
Outstanding.
Outstanding, yes.
Again, backup option.
Right. And so we got a little bit of a bigger apartment and stuff like that because I carry a lot of stuff with me as a musician on the side and things like that.
Sure.
So it was a little bit of like, okay, here's my office, doing my thing. Yeah. And then, we just kind of stayed there until I got the call up to go to Seattle.
Yeah.
And, moved out that way, I think, in 2009.
Okay.
2008,
that's about right, because we both graduated in 05.
05, 06.
05, 06. Yeah. So Shawn and I went to college together.
Cool.
We're the original VisCom kids.
We are.
Ooh.
Because when people talk about graduating with a VisCom degree, I'm like, I want you to know that people like Shawn and I are the reason, not exclusively, but partially because so many of us were trying to cobble together design degrees through this lens of mass media.
Yeah.
And so we just did like 1,000 independent studies, minoring in graphic design, making these poor journalism professors give us InDesign classes.
Right.
So you couldn't declare it as a major until the spring of 05, even though so many of us we have VisCom degrees, but not technical. Does yours say VisCom? Mine does not.
No, mine just says journalism.
Mine says print journalism.
Oh, it says. They did print.
They did print. I know.
Interesting.
But
because you did the capstone in print journalism, right?
I did. So what was your capstone in?
I did 4 semesters of broadcast because I had done print for 8 years by the time I had gotten to there.
Sure.
Because I started working full time when I was 14.
Okay. Yes.
Bless the crooked publisher that.
I was about to say, are we going to unpack that?
I feel like we should.
Child labor laws here in South Carolina.
They needed somebody. They were like, can you write sports? And I had taken one intro to journalism class in high school.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely, I can write a story.
Sure. At 14, sure.
Confidence.
At 14.
I love it.
Let's do it. Because I had played also one semester of high school football. And I was this is not for me.
Yeah. You're right.
I was like, and I had played sports for the whole time and things. And they were like, you just write a couple stories a week and stuff like that. Things, by the way, we're going to send you to Sertoma, which is the high school equivalent of the college football playoff.
Okay.
Which is everybody comes together. It's the kickoff to the season. Mm-hmm. Everybody plays 2 quarters and then the bands get to do all their thing and stuff like that. And it was okay, I don't know anybody on these teams yet and stuff like that. So I'm going to figure it out real quick, find a roster,
sure.
Bug somebody to be like, how do you write a story?
Hi, I've been hired.
Yeah.
Some questions.
Yeah. It was hello, newspaper people. How do you write a sports story? And then what I just kind of did was looked at all the stories, and I understood basics like leads, headlines, things like that. And then sort of just copied what they did.
Yeah.
And was like, okay, here's how we're going to put it together and stuff like that. And hoped for the best.
There you go.
And they were like, yep, here you go. Here's a check. And I was like, wow, money.
Whoa.
Well, it's like, you can do this? All right, cool. I guess this is what we're doing for the rest of our lives.
This is right. This is the end of eternity with me.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of been I call myself a storyteller. I've been that ever since.
Cool.
And then, so by the time we got to our senior year, like I had been like you said, we did a ton of independent studies and things like that.
So many.
I'd done a ton of independent studies and things like that, and all the internships they could send us on.
Sure.
And so by the time we got to it, I was like, well, I don't really need to learn print journalism because I worked the press at one point in time too. Because I was one of these ADHD kids that was like, how do I do everything? And how do I do it all by myself?
Also known as a J school kid.
Pretty much.
I feel like the type of people that go through the J school program, like, we're just built different, man. We're just weirdos that want to do it all.
And we were in the Coliseum. Now they have the fancy building and everything
nice
like
now.
that.
Oh,
it really
we
is.
lived like worms. Like I had a vitamin D deficiency when I graduated from college because I was underground.
We were
all day
for days at a time.
Yes,
and so by that point in time, I had seen a lot of folks like yourself and some of my contemporaries, like my twin and stuff like that. She was going through the print side of things. And I was like, okay, nothing really else for me to learn here and stuff like that. Like, what happens if I go and try to do the broadcast side? And they never had a graphics or designer person, stuff like that. And
on the broadcast side?
Never.
I mean, there was like literally 3 of us on the print side. Like, and even then print was like a little bit of a misnomer then because they were teaching us like CMS and like the 24-hour news cycle.
Wait, you got CMS? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that.
Oh, no, I got that. They were teaching us like very basic social media management because like Facebook had been around a year at this point. So like one of the things that I always loved about the J school is that they made you really well-rounded no matter what track you picked.
True.
So like, yes, I was learning copy editing and copywriting, but like I was also like learning design programs and basic CMS. You would die if you saw what they were trying to make me work, and it was awful. But like, hey, I was working in a CMS in 2004. Which is a long time ago.
So Danielle, their way of teaching us video. And I will.
I'm so excited.
Buckle in.
Yes. So we
dive in.
We had a specialty Saturday class.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was all of the VisCom students that were there at the time. We came in. The professor had printed out the Final Cut Pro manual.
On paper.
I love it.
And it was about as thick about as thick as both of these books that the microphone is sitting on. And he came in, he put it in a binder and things like that. And he set it at the front of the class and was like, if you have any questions, refer to the manual.
Okay.
I'm gonna go and good luck.
Where is he? Where did he go?
I don't know. Because you and I did the same thing. We did J school and then minored in graphic in the art program because I was like, there's not enough art here. Like
literally.
Like one of the J school professors, she's long since retired, and things like that. But like her biggest piece of advice when we first got in there was like, make sure you're good at drinking black coffee. That way you can make conversation with your like interview subject and stuff. And I was like, honey, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've never drank black coffee in my life. No.
Boo Bear, I got hired at 14. I'm sorry. I'm not drinking coffee.
No, well, what you said? That was a little bit of this kind of, it was a little bit, I mean, like cocky or uncocky kind of thing. It was like a little bit of that, like, I mean, let's be honest, all of us designers and creatives were a little bit divas.
A little bit.
We talk about that every single episode. I'm like, us?
It's our our couple name. Diva.
Diva.
No. So a lot of the times I'm listening to the podcast in the car as I'm dropping my daughter off at the bus stop to the school and stuff like that. And every time y'all bring that up, I was like, yeah,
we are.
As much as I don't want to like be like, yeah, we are.
No, we are. I think we're self-aware about it.
True.
The ones in this room are.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Not all are self-aware.
We have some cohorts out and about.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
But that was the kind of thing of like, when we got into that program, it was a lot of the like, here's how to draw your typography.
Sure.
And things like that. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this on Paystop. Like, I don't want to be like that old guy. But like, when I first started at that paper when I was really young, they didn't have InDesign or Quark.
Correct.
At the time. They didn't have the PageMaker or any of that kind of stuff. I went and bought my own like desktop and bought a bought a copy of PageMaker, I think, back in the day, and taught myself a lot of that kind of stuff, because they were like hand doing it in like Microsoft Word, and they would like make the margins this big because that's what the 6-up pages and stuff like that were. And you have to run it through the wax machine and everything. And I was like, you know what? I just want to print out the page itself and then just paste the whole page right there. And then I know it's all designed and kerned and everything correctly.
Properly, correct.
And it was just like, and you can tell throughout the years, because my first, like my mother did that thing where she like framed the first thing with like the first dollar and stuff, which I was like, that's cool. That's hanging up in the studio and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that.
Right between both business licenses for like my jobs and stuff like that with it.
I love it.
But like, you can definitely tell, like I look at it now and I'm just like, oh, that is that's got to be closer to
God.
like.
The things that I found that like my early design work, I was so proud of it. And I was like, somebody needed to forcibly remove the cellophane filter out of my hands when I was like not a junior. I was probably like a freshman in college, because I was so excited about it.
No, Cornegay still brings out the final senior portfolio every once in a while. He'll probably bring it out when I do the class again this week. He brings that out. He's like, hey, look at how cool it is with Illustrator and stuff. I was like, dude, no.
Please stop.
Stop. I
could do better work now when I'm drunk. Like, what's happening?
I was like, we do what we call couch sessions that are better than what we did in senior year. Like,
but that's the process, and that's learning. And, and I also think like, what our level of work looked like completed at the end of a degree then is so different now, because students or just any creatives like have so much more access to technology. And so they're just further along. Even by the time they get to college. I feel like the bar for getting into a design program now is probably much higher than anything we experienced, because there's just, you just had to like, it was really more access now. You should be able to produce more work because of the tech.
It's the access to all of it.
The access to the tech.
Well, and I don't know if you feel the same way when you went to SCAD and stuff like that, but like when we were coming through, it did feel like the Wild West. Of like, especially with the way technology was going and stuff like that, like the principles are all the same.
Oh, sure.
And like learning hand cut and doing all the things where you had to mat it and stuff like that, like that stuff was like, okay, cool. I've never matted a single thing for any client in my entire life.
No, but
thank God, because I can't cut a straight. I still haven't done it for awards yet.
We don't now, but we did for a while. And like we cut for AAF, we cut in-person judging a couple of years ago for a number of reasons, like mainly for financial reasons. But I did share at one point, because I was freelancing at the time. I was like, I would have submitted more work if I didn't have to do physical mock-ups, because I make stuff and I send it to the client and I get paid. I have to go physically print brochures and like physically print posters that I don't have any samples of them because I'm a freelancer.
I did have one client. It was maybe 2-3 years before the pandemic. And which is still way past when we were still mounting things. And the account executive was like, no, I think we need to mount all the logo options. Mind you, there were also 30. And I found a picture this week, because I think it must have been like the anniversary of it. And where I took a picture of the stack, it was like at least 3 inches of mounted boards. And I'm like, what a waste. I had so many paper cuts. And
well, and like, think about the billable hours that you.
I did it like, I took it home and did it at night, because I'm like, I don't have time during the workday to.
No. And now I think if you were to walk in with like stuff on like a pasteboard or like on
they wouldn't take it seriously.
Oh no, they'd be like, what are you doing?
Actually, well, they may still even do this. We had the gigantic 9x16 whiteboards that they would literally carry into meetings with the executives at Amazon and stuff like that. And we'd put them up around the room and we would have things laid out so you could like, compare it.
At Amazon, one of the biggest tech companies. I know they do more than but like one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Y'all ain't going to use a screen?
And so much of it, though, depends on who you're presenting to.
The thing is when you sit in a room with a bunch of senior executives and stuff like that. I'll back up a little bit. So every meeting at Amazon starts with a doc. So even if you are a designer, if you are an engineer, you better learn how to write real quick, because you will get not only called out for like the business stuff in the document, but if you write poorly, they will call out your poor writing in the document and tell you to like. And so I taught writing to a lot of my designers and stuff like that at Amazon, because it actually becomes the backbone of what I do for a living now, which is storytelling. They call it the narrative. of the business sort of piece, but it's, it's a lot of the kind of stuff of like, why are we here? What decisions are we trying to make? Mm-hmm. Here's the background to why you care, because a lot of these executives go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. That doc sets them up to say, okay, here's what I need to do in this meeting. Mm-hmm. And it kind of sets everybody up, because really, truthfully, after a while, everybody goes from meeting to meeting to meeting.
Sure.
And so then you come in with the boards and everything like that. And it gives people a chance to like actually stand up and go and like walk around the room and see all the stuff more in a physical sort of manner. But then I sort of like argued, I was like, okay, but none of our clients are ever going to see it like this.
Yeah.
So here's a phone. So I went on to Amazon. I was like, give me the cheapest phone I can find that I can sideload.
Yeah.
Give me a few of those so I can pass them around the room, because these are mobile mock-ups, and all right, junior designer, put your laptop here in front of the people so they can scroll through and see it like the actual customers are going to see it.
Sure.
Like, it's great that you guys are up here like copy editing my copy and stuff like that in real time.
Right.
That's fine. Peace. Like, you like this word, I don't, whatever,
Right.
But you need to be able to experience the whole UX flow and everything like that as like a customer would.
Yeah.
And so, the advent of Figma and everything like that, where you could start like putting it all together, which was really great. But we just created like all sorts of processes and stuff like that around it, because there was just so much like that was getting lost in translation, and they would be worried about like the minorest detail of like, well, this is off by like 3 pixels or whatever. And it's like,
they're not going to be able to see that on a phone.
Right.
It's a thumbnail.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, first of all, nobody knows that. Like most customers, like, it's, the everything store, right? So we like, our customer base was very broad.
Broader than most products, I would argue, because one of the things when you write a brief now is people's like, you can't write down everybody 18 to 80, male, female. No, I'm like, actually, I think Amazon can.
Actually, we did. Yeah.
Actually, you're going below 18 because you have some products that are geared for like 13 plus.
You can't market to anybody 13 and under.
Right.
But you can 13 to 18.
But 13 through, with
Kappa.
Yeah.
I watched Silicon Valley. There's a whole episode about it.
That is true.
Yeah.
The trick is they're not the ones with the credit card anyway, so you really need to market to the parents.
Sure, but there is some element of marketing to them.
Yeah. To a degree. Amazon's lawyers are very worried about litigation.
Sure.
They should be.
So, right.
It's a good thing to worry about.
It's a good vibe.
So there was a lot of the kind of stuff of like very much skirting the like, okay, the lawyers having to get very okay with like, okay, this is a little bit on the kid side. Okay, we'll let it go. And then a lot of it was just like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We just don't even want to try to go there and get, our hand slapped or anything like that with it. And I was like, all right, peace.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be in deposition either.
No, that sounds terrible. No one does. That sounds terrible. Okay, so I'm going to make you back up because we've mentioned Amazon. I know you were at Amazon, and instead of just trying to like slice and dice this thing and put it back in order,
I figured it out.
No, I know you. I know you that you're doing great. But for the rest of my audience, for the rest of our audience, you worked at Amazon?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah. So do you want me to start at the beginning?
Yeah, start at the beginning. Like, how did you go from cobbling it together as a J school USC kid, like we do, to Amazon?
Yeah.
And then to freelance and like, just take me through your whole arc.
So it kind of started, as I was sort of saying earlier, it started a little bit as faking it till we make it.
Oh, yeah. Right.
As you do.
All of us.
Literally faking it and being like, trying to get like anybody to take me to the games because we couldn't drive back then.
Yeah.
But I had like at 15, and I don't know if it's still the way it is here, but like at 15, if you have a work permit, you can go get your license way ahead of time.
I didn't know it.
So I went and applied for every little thing you could do.
So it changed when I was in high school.
Okay.
So, and if you were born at a certain time, you were grandfathered in. So I was part of the grandfathered in. So it changed right around.
Yeah.
I didn't have a job.
Right.
So, and then I kept my permit for too long because you have to get it. The idea is you get your permit for like a couple months and then you take your driving test. I let my permit expire because my best friend had a car and I didn't have a job and I had no reason to do it. And so then I had to go get it renewed. And now I was no longer grandfathered in, which was fine. By then I was almost 17. But yes, you could drive longer than your permit hours if you had.
I mean, I grew up in West Virginia. I think they just risked it.
Right. No. If you had a job and you had to have like paper. So if you got pulled over, you had to have paperwork that you had a job.
Yeah. I had my little envelope there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I let it expire though too. I was just like, I'll take a chance.
I mean, I just it's fine. I'm like, you ain't got bigger fish to fry out.
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so you're driving illegally at 15.
Sounds like maybe legally at the time for a little bit.
Legally at the time.
And then you work at Amazon. Like that's just the jump.
Well, it's kind of it's the funny story of like, okay, you're going from being like super scrappy, and I would work not just for like one paper. I'd actually worked for like 4 papers at the same time because nobody had non-compete clauses.
So why not? You
didn't tell me I couldn't. Yeah, you didn't tell me I couldn't. And so we would do a lot of that kind of stuff where, you know, I would write an article and it would go in several different kind of places. So I would be up to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was very preparing for college. I'd be up to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning writing all these articles and getting them out, and then having to get back up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly like journalism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by the time we got to J school, I was just like, oh, this is walk in the park.
Black coffee? I'm fine. I don't need that. I'm great.
Black coffee. Injection, please.
Yeah, no, we're doing great.
And so we went through and it was just going along as like a normal journalism sort of program. And then we finally got into art school as part of the major. That's where you get past all the like, you know, basic
the foundational
things, all the foundational classes and
things.
the things I don't really understand why we have to retake in college because they weren't any different in high school.
Most don't have work experience at 15.
Well, but I had read, you know, Fahrenheit 451 like 6 times by then.
Fair,
right.
Like, why do I need to do another book report on that?
They let us test out of a lot of stuff at USC. I don't know why they don't let us test out of some of this. Like, they let you test out of foreign language. They let you test into whatever math, which in my case, I tested out of math, which was ideal. I don't know why they don't let you test out of so many English classes to get a journalism degree, which I get. But like, did I have to take 3 poetry classes?
Right.
I love poetry. Did I have to burn 3?
It does seem like you can test
like
out of that.
9 credit hours of poetry classes.
I purposely went and did weird ones like African American studies and stuff like that for literature.
Yeah.
Just so I could like randomly just get other perspectives and stuff like that. Because I was just like, I'm not taking the 4th like English 401 class that's studying English literature from the 1200s or something like that.
Yeah.
Like some weird thing.
I took a lot of religious studies classes because I could. Oh, I took like, I don't know, 6 of them.
See, I got thrown off in the beginning of this because SCAD foundation meant illustration.
Oh, no.
Drawing.
No.
So I was like, well, you need that. But no, now that I'm with you. Yeah, I forgot what we called it, but it wasn't that. But I'm like, oh, yeah, I still don't know why I was required to take a math class.
It's funny. There's an episode where we talk about this. I'm like, does SCAD have a math professor?
Yeah.
It's one poor, lonely guy.
Yeah.
Who, like, the only person on the entire campus who, like, knows anything about differential equations. They don't talk to him in the lunchroom.
No, not at all.
It's actually funny because I did a lot of the Head Start programs because I was in journalism classes then. From the time I started working in journalism, I just took the journalism classes in high school.
Yeah. And
was putting out the paper and being an editor and yada, yada kind of thing. And it was a lot of like, okay, we're going to learn how to use PageMaker and stuff like that in high school and do all these kind of things. And so that's when I learned how to work a press and everything like that because high school, South Carolina, very scrappy.
Now, where did you go to high school?
Stratford High School.
In
Goose Creek.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Outside of Charleston, Duck Ditch for all of those that went there.
So sassy.
But yeah, so like a lot of that kind of stuff, when we get to like the J school and stuff, we didn't have a lot of the art or any of the design and stuff like that. It was very much focused on here are words, you put words on a page, you put words in this way.
Yeah.
And this is what you do kind of thing. And I was like, where is the design?
Right. And they were getting there and they were starting to build that out, which is what the VisCom program became very heavy in.
Yes.
But I think so much of that came from people like you and I coming through and being like, okay, so I'll take an independent study I did one at SCE-TV and I worked at the Newsplex. I did 2 of them. And so I did a whole year there where they just let me come in and do whatever I wanted. And so I was like editing video and I was building websites and I was using all their equipment. And so I think maybe I'm giving people like you and I too much credit, but I would think that they would see what students like you and I were doing and there were other, I mean, Garen was doing the same thing, like watching what we were doing, trying to like self-guide and being like, okay, so maybe we should consider that when building out some of these curriculum long-term. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You asked them when you talked to them this week.
I don't know. I was very vocal about it because I was like, when we got to the art school and it was a lot of like, here's the foundations of like typography and layout and things. And I was like, okay,
how do we merge these things?
Yeah, how does all this work together now?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
And so graduated and everything like that, and just kind of palled around South Carolina in like newspapers and things.
Yeah. Back when we still had a lot. R.I.P.
Back when we could. Making literally like $23,000 a year, which was like barely enough to like squeak out an apartment back then.
Right.
And it was just kind of like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Kind of piece. And so, we like jumped around from a couple of different places and things like that, and none of it was really sticking. And I got picked up for like a marketing like assistant kind of job at a like mom and pop like restaurant group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, this is marketing and advertising now. All right, cool. I ended up just making the menus and doing some things. And then they like let me go after a little while because they were like, we don't know what to do with you. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do with me either. I appreciate
I'm going to go to Seattle because they seem to be good about figuring out what to do with people who nobody knows what else to do with.
Yeah, I was just, and so, well, actually, so Amazon has and still does have an independent book publishing, like, so all the books that get put on Kindle for like self-publishing went through a company at the time called Book Surge.
Okay.
And then Amazon acquired them and they turned it into CreateSpace. Okay. And now I think it's just all part of Kindle and stuff like that. And they called me up one day and they were just like, hey, we have this opening, would you like to come in? It's all about design and stuff like that. And I was like, sure, I didn't know what to do.
Sure. Yeah. But like, at that point, like you take any opportunity like that, right?
I was in the middle of like playing pool with my friend, like because he was also out of work at the time, and we were just palling around doing nothing during the day,
right?
So I was just like, I'm taking a job.
What is it? When do I start? Like, I could be there in 48 hours. I'll just ship my things. It's fine, right?
No. Well, and this was in Charleston, so it was just like, all right, I will be there tomorrow for the interview and stuff like that. It was sort of like a designer / customer support kind of role.
I applied to that all right. They're like, you do all the marketing and you run the events. And you also enter the phones.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, what?
And what it became is kind of like a design sort of management piece, because we had this stable of illustrators and designers, and then they had a lot of things overseas that would do all like the interior formatting a certain way. Mm-hmm. There were only so many ways they wanted to do stuff. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times it was working with authors to like really help them concept their book. Mm-hmm. And you started to like really learn it and things like that. And you started to like coach them on what the hell to do.
Yeah. Where do we start?
Yeah. And then I started like sort of being like, okay, well, we have no resources to explain to these people like what it is to do. And in the era of Amazon at the time, way back then, they were still known for books and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of like, okay, so think about the thumbnail. They were always, well, what about the spine and looking on the shelf and stuff? And
you don't see that when they're buying it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And so then I started writing articles about that kind of stuff and like sending it, putting up on the website, sending it to people and things like that. And then somebody came by and dropped a Kindle on my desk, like one of the first generation ones.
Wow. Yeah.
And they were like, okay, so we want to make comic books for Kindle. Thought experiment. How would you do it? Being a design kid and a photography person, I was like, rule of thirds.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Break it up into 9 panels and mm-hmm. This is how you go. And you just click kind of thing. And they were like, oh, okay. All right. And at the time they hadn't bought Comixology or anything, which became their like comic book distributor and things. And so then they started calling up and they're like, well, hey, we have this production position, available in Seattle, it's open to whoever wants to come and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, I'd never been on an airplane before.
Really?
Never.
I'm sorry. That's just such a cute, cool, like element of this story. Yeah. It is like, it is that like, I got a call. And so I was like working for Amazon, like in Charleston. And then they called me to come out and like, I got on an airplane for that's incredible.
Country bumpkin goes to the big city for the first time.
This big main character energy. Like, I just love that. I'm sorry. I just think that's so cool.
Well, and my partner at the time too, is I'm trying to like talk to them and just be like, okay, so how do I go through security? Like post 9/11. And they're like, well, you're going to take your shoes off, you're going to do these things and stuff. This is before clear and pre-check.
Sure.
Like that.
And if you've never been like, and you're going to go by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, of course, ask all the questions, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so, they're from the big city of Houston, Texas. So, they had been on airplanes and all that kind of stuff.
On an airplane to get across Houston.
Pretty much.
I imagine, right?
And so I get there knowing nothing. And like they sent Amazon has a lot of buildings now in downtown Seattle. Mm-hmm. They're all numbered. So they're all SEA 1 number kind of thing. So they just sent me the invite and with the building number and the building name.
Oh.
And they're all named after different products or dogs of the owners. Yeah. Okay. So Rufus was the name of the Amazon's mascot is actually the corgi.
Oh, is that why he pops up when my page is broken?
I was going to say the page is
I just thought the algorithm knew me really well.
So that was actually a campaign called Dogs of Amazon where everybody just brought in
that I remembered, but I really just thought the algorithm knows me so well. It's like, this girl likes corgis.
And so like they just sent me the thing. All I had at the time was the address to the travel office, which is a completely different building in a completely different part of town.
Oh, so not even like, do they have a campus proper where like everything's kind of
downtown
contained?
Seattle's their campus. It might as well be.
I asked somebody once about the SCAD campus. They're like, Savannah. The entire campus is the
city that you're in
is the whole SCAD campus. So all of Seattle is the Amazon campus.
And at the time it wasn't that way. Okay. We were in this little pocket called South Lake Union that I learned to love and things like that. But the travel office was uptown from that. Mm-hmm. So I show up at the travel office thinking I'm ready for my job interview. Getting there on time and everything like that. And the woman just looks at me. She's like, honey, I don't know. Who are you meeting with?
Oh,
and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I am a lost child. Can you help me?
I am a baby from South Carolina.
Yeah. I was like, I came to the only address you gave me. And I was like, well, I've completely screwed this job interview. And they were like, oh, no, you need to walk down 17 blocks down here. In Seattle. Right.
Real city blocks.
And so I'm like hoofing it down to get to this thing. So I'm like sweating by the time I get there.
That's a great first impression.
Yeah. Right. And I'm like dressed up and, thinking it's like a real job interview. They're in jeans and like t-shirts.
You're like in a suit or something, right?
Yeah. I was a southern boy. I was raised to do certain things. So I was just like, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And go through the interview process and stuff like that. And just like flying back and all. And I'm just like, all right, I just completely screwed the pooch. I was like, that was cool. I got a plane ride out of it and stuff like that.
Ran around Seattle.
Yeah. And so they called back like only a couple of days later kind of thing. Because we have a thing at Amazon to go like fast with job interviews.
Really?
Like, have people hanging.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
I think not just like in a lot of companies, not just big ones, but small ones too.
Yeah. So they call me back and they're like, so by the way, we need you here in 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
My bosses at CreateSpace were not very happy at all because at the time there was only like 4 or 5 of us anyways that were sort of like, we were kind of like the A-team designers.
Yeah.
Doing like, sometimes we would do the work, sometimes we would design. A lot of times we had a lot of the white glove, high touch kind of things.
Sure.
So then all of a sudden they're like, okay.
We're losing 20% of our workforce.
Right. Yeah. They were not happy. They were like, can you push it back? And I'm like, he was pretty like,
it's Amazon. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I kind of have to.
Well, it was their bosses.
I don't think I can push back Amazon.
Yeah. Well, and even though we were all kind of part of Amazon and stuff like that, it was like Amazon proper.
Yeah.
No.
And so like it was their like
Amazon.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I think this is kind of your bosses being like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And
above my pay grade. That's a problem.
That's what I thought. I was like, so I accepted the job because we had talked about it like in a hypothetical of like, what if we moved to Seattle and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Because my partner being from a bigger city and stuff like that, she was now in South Carolina forever today. And she's like, yeah, there's not a lot like here for us as journalism kids.
Yeah.
As pure journalism kids.
Yeah.
A lot of the papers were dying out and stuff like that. It was really hard to find other work. Mm-hmm. It's not like it was now where we've sort of transitioned into other
It was a weird time to get a journalism degree, like to graduate 05, 06, 07, and then try to enter the workforce.
And
welcome to housing market too.
The housing, like everything's, and then like, and now to your point, like media looks differently, and I think people know how to navigate that now.
Yeah,
but like we were in the journalism program during such a pivotal time for media
when people had to figure it out. But we didn't know what we were figuring out.
We didn't know what we were figuring out.
It was anxiety on another level.
Oh, my God. Right. And we're like, we spent 4 years preparing you to work for a newspaper. I'm like, 80% of closed since I applied to this school. And they all pay like not enough to live off of. Right. I don't know what you want me to do.
I have another story about that. We'll talk in a second. Cool. But so we accepted the job and stuff like that. And at the time, they did not have a job in Seattle either. So it was like, I'm going to have to carry everything for a little bit. Giant moving truck moves out in front of our brand new house that we had just built We had been living there for 6 months.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And they're like, don't worry, we will pack up all your stuff. And I was like, if you touch my guitars, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
I will build a vault and we'll get it out there kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those were my babies.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then watched as like 15 people descended upon our house, wrapping up plates and doing all these kind of things and being like, yeah, you got it on a plane in a few hours. Like, good luck.
Second plane ride.
Yeah, second plane ride. And by the way, we're taking the animals and moving across 4,000 miles across the country.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Thankfully, so I get there, right? And my boss, who I had met he took me to lunch as part of the interview. I'd never and I was like, is this a lunch? Is this the part of the interview? I thought it was part of the interview and things like that. He was so laid back and stuff. Like, I didn't understand the Seattle laid back mentality at the time.
Yeah.
But he brings me up there and stuff like that. I get there. I don't have a desk. All of Amazon's desks are what we call door desks. They are made of literally a solid plywood door.
What?
And 4x4s.
Why?
Because that was how Jeff Bezos made his first desk in his garage, and everybody else can do that. And so they can like make desks and move them around like super quick and stuff like that.
Fascinating.
Nowadays, I think you can get up down.
That's wild. Is that like a well-known thing, or is this an insider? Like, I've never heard that.
I don't know.
Okay.
Obviously, it's
obviously
super well
it's
known.
cool. It's fine to say, but like, I just never heard that. And that feels like a.
It's one of their points of pride, how they consider themselves peculiar and stuff like that. Was that sort of piece?
I'm going to tell random people that.
Yeah. I know,
will give you credit that like my friend Shawn told me, but I just find that weirdly fascinating.
Yeah.
It's so I get there, right, and everybody's and back then. The Kindle design team.
Okay.
It wasn't even Amazon devices at the time because all we made was the Kindle.
The Kindle at the time, right?
And we were in a space that was maybe twice the size of this room. Mm-hmm. All of us, the UX team, the VX team. And he comes up there. He's got a half broken MacBook because he had just dropped it down a set of concrete stairs.
We're doing great. Sure.
And I didn't have a place to sit. So he was like, all right, find a seat. Here's your one coworker.
Oh.
Who I had met during the interview, but I didn't know she was my colleague kind of thing. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Here's your one colleague. I'm getting on a plane with Jeff Bezos. We're going to New York. We're going to go announce these 3 products. By the way, we don't have detail pages or any advertising and things like that. We're doing it in about a week. Good luck.
I'm so much to unpack. Were you panicking? I would have been panicking.
I called my partner and was just like, I'm not coming home for the next couple of days. Deadline. And they were, and they were like, okay, well, that's cool, because we had pulled all-nighters and stuff at
they get it. Yeah.
She was like, they were the wire editor and stuff like that at a decent sized newspaper here in South Carolina. So like breaking news, changes,
right?
Nights and weekends, whatever.
Also, like you're young at this point, right? Like it's not like, you got kids to deal with and stuff when you get home. And I just feel like it's a different game in your 20s. You're like, yes, I'm staying all night.
Yeah.
Well, and it was one of those things like while I was working, I was also doing a lot of sports photography.
Sure.
So because they worked nights and weekends and stuff like that, I would just go shoot all the USC games and things. And then we would converge back at one of our apartments when we were doing the long distance thing. We'd converge back at one of our apartments at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
Because that was just normal working hours.
That's
for
fine.
us.
Right.
Yeah. And so like just called them up and it's been that kind of train ride ever since. Like it took off from there. And then the next year when we started announcing devices, it was like, okay, so we're going to fly you down to California. You're going to live there for like a month. And we're going to launch all of these products. And you are like the design team to do like the presentation, all of the, you know how they do it like Apple's WWDC.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the big keynote and stuff. Congratulations, you guys are now in charge of that. And Jeff's going to be the one on stage, so you got to write his script. And I hope it's good.
Great.
No big deal. You're going to
no big deal. First year working at the company kind of thing. And it'd be like, by the way, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, by the way, we need all the detail pages, all the marketing and stuff like that for every product and stuff. So, your one colleague is going to stay back in Seattle. We got to find another team to take down there with you and stuff like that. Like, it was all this kind of crazy stuff where we, like, lived out of a hotel room for a while, putting this whole big to-do down on there. And then from every year until I left, that was part of my job.
That was your life, right?
It was just every fall came around. It was just like, well, when are we going to start the process?
Right.
And then I became the creative director of that whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
Working with like the PR teams and doing stuff like that. And then like we started making everything from started making everything from little tiny buttons that you could press to like reorder Tide Pods and things like that. So Alexa.
I had one.
Yeah. Thank you. You were one of the few.
I
spent a lot of time working on that creative.
I reordered a lot of toilet paper that way.
But yeah, we sort of worked out the way and became a creative director of that stuff. And then we had so many that we split off the products between 2 creative directors and things like that. And then we split off, and as I have come to expect from my particular role at Amazon, because I became known as the guy that was kind of up for anything. I get pulled into a conference room, and I think this was in like late 2018, 2019. And again, it was another one of those, pack your bags. You're getting on a plane in a couple of hours.
Now you've been on a plane though before. So
I've been on a plane many times.
By
that time we had launched products around the world. So it was just like, we were like, hey, I need you and one of your people to go to Germany for a month. And we're going to go do all this kind of stuff. And then you're going to come back to Seattle. And then for 2 weeks straight, you're going to do it in Seattle. Okay. Kind of thing. So like, we were kind of like, whatever about this kind of stuff. And they were like, okay, so you're going to get on a plane. You're going down to Houston, Texas. We're not going to tell you what you're doing. So just, I hope your loved ones are okay with you leaving.
Do they not know what you're doing till you get there? Or were they?
They couldn't tell me.
I would have been like, am I coming back?
No, I was like,
loved ones are okay. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, at the time, there was a very small baby in our life and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of like, okay.
So now it is more complicated.
Yeah, it is a little more complicated. I was like,
we're all parents here, so we get it. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I don't know why I'm going down to Houston, but I've got to go down there for a couple of days and they'll come back. You know, it was like, cool, because they traveled for work. I traveled for work. So we just kind of kept passing it off and doing things like that. But it was another one of those like, hey, you're getting on a plane in like a couple of hours. And oh, by the way, we're taking your entire teams away from you. By that time, I had managed about 50 to 60 people across 3D, product management, program management, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
And they're like, we won't tell you why. It's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be fine.
Is it the mafia?
And I was just like, okay, what did I do wrong? Because I was like, I didn't want to lose my teams and stuff like that.
Oh, so you interpret it not knowing.
Yeah, I was like, am I fired?
Without context.
Like, are you just putting like, is this an old Yeller moment? Like, you don't have to take me to Texas for that. You can just tell me I'm done and I can go away.
Texas does seem like the fitting place.
It does. Well,
So I get down there and a car comes to pick me up.
Oh my God.
Right?
And some people, like one person that I recognized who was kind of pulled me aside in the thing and was like, hey, we're going down there and stuff like that. So I met this person and they're driving us along and stuff. I was like, so what are we doing? And she's in the passenger seat and stuff like that. And she turns to me and she's like, so we're going to NASA headquarters.
Okay.
And I went, all right. For what? And they're like, we're going to be part of the Artemis 1 mission to the moon.
Oh.
And I was like, come again? You have my attention now.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay. All right.
And I looked at it. I was like, I am underdressed. I am Seattle chic over here.
I'm Seattle chic. I love that.
And she was in a business suit.
Oh,
like she was
man.
the NBA.
I like that it's now like flipped, right? Like you showed up to Seattle way overdressed, and now you've been in Seattle for a while, and you show up to Houston underdressed. Like I love this narrative.
And so we're going through, and in the first like couple of hours and stuff like that, they kind of run down what the project is and things like that. And it is in a big conference room that you can imagine that would be the head of NASA's conference room. It looks like that. Just picture that in your head for those on the podcast. That's what it looks like. Trust me. Eisenhower built it, the whole kind of thing.
Oh my God.
I think Eisenhower built that particular one.
Yeah.
And then they just walk us around mission control, like the actual mission control building.
So cool.
And I'm just like taking pictures of everything that I can probably think.
Try not to lose your mind, right?
Yeah, because I'm just like, okay.
No one will believe me.
Well, and I'm just like sitting there. I'm just like, so like, why is a creative director here?
Yeah. Like,
what am I doing here?
Yeah. Why am I here?
Yeah. I think I'm cool, but like, why am I this cool? Like, what's happening?
We're talking engineering and science and things like that right now. And like, you guys are actual rocket scientists. Yeah. What are we doing here?
I don't feel qualified in this moment to be in this room.
I've been taking a math class since I was 17. Like, why am I here?
my calculus class was at the Naval Academy Nuke School down in Goose Creek, where they store the nuclear weapons and they teach the kids how to use the nuclear subs and all that kind of stuff. Wow.
So maybe you were qualified.
I know.
No.
Like, maybe.
No. It was the only time I've ever made a C in my life because he was the professor was about 80 years old. He was a retired naval professor. He was old school, chalkboard as big as this room.
Yeah.
He would start at one end, go up and down and up and down and all like that, then get to the end of it, start erasing and going back again to still finish doing the problem. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not following this.
No.
I don't have the attention span to figure out what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And I'm in a class, there's me at like 17, 18 in a class with a bunch of people dressed in Navy casual.
They're in the Navy,
uniform.
Though. Yes,
they're full-on officers and things like that in the Navy. And I'm going, no.
This sounds like one of my worst anxiety dreams.
It was terrible. It was a bad situation.
I'd rather dream about my teeth falling out.
I get that one a lot.
But I was like, it was fine. Yeah. That was me dodging having to do a ton of math when I got to college.
Sure.
It was cheaper, things like that.
Yeah.
C's still get degrees. So we did our thing.
Not the J school, though.
Not in the J school.
No. They have a grade cutoff, and it's not C's.
Yeah, no.
In math, they're kind of like, it's fine.
No, your core classes, like your journalism classes.
Yeah, no. Scott was the same way. You had to get a 3.0 at least.
B or higher for core classes. They didn't really care about your...
Yeah, all those.
They're not called extracurricular, but like whatever your...
The foundational kind of thing.
Yeah. But they didn't care about like what I made in like my history.
Anything outside your major.
History class. Yeah, non-major classes, they didn't really care.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt your really cool story.
It's good.
It's really good. But as I predicted, this session is going longer. So we're going to do 2 episodes.
Yep.
So we're going to jump off here. And then we'll be back next week.
Yeah, I need to know what's in mission control.
I need to know what's in mission control as well. So for now, we're going to sign off. So thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Ghost Boss Podcast. And also, please like and review us on your favorite podcast app.